What up? What up? And here we are for another episode of Black Nerd Fridays, where we got three nerds, as you can see, just two for right now, but three nerds who come up here and talk about everything that is nerdy. I mean, animated, written, live action, doesn't matter. We talk about it. And we also do, kind of pair everything with beer as well. So let me go ahead and give go ahead and introduce my co-host here. Co-host, Mr. Refined himself. Go ahead and introduce yourself. What you drinking on?
Well, you already know what it is. Like I said, this episode is definitely old school. It's classic. It's like right into my favorite season is fall time. So I'm going with the
Yes.
Anger Oktoberfest Märzen or Martin, however you want to pronounce it. But this is old school classical. Gets me in that vibe. And this is the first for me, right? This one right here. I'm doing what I
Nice.
mean by first. I don't normally do two beers. I'm doing two today. This is a stout
Ooh,
that is um aged with raw coconut, coconut milk, and toasted coconut. This is cocoa crazy. So, and this is 14%. So it's gonna go
ooh,
down tonight. And I got a glass.
14%. Okay,
I
all
got a
right, I see.
glass. Shout out to the homie Brick. You already know what it
Ooh,
is. It's going down. Hashtag high ABV life. So that's gonna get filled up real soon when we start
nice.
drinking for real. So you already know I'm ready to get
Nice.
into it. It's Friday. D running late, but it's all good.
D running late. You get what I'm saying? He always giving
Yeah.
us a hard time talking about, you guys got to get on here. I'm like, I'm sorry, sir, but who's here today? Who's here today? Just saying. Just saying. And
That's
you
a
already
fact.
know, everybody, it's me, KinkySudz, aka on a budget cosplay queen. Tonight, I thought about it. I thought about having a beer. But, because it's been such a hard week, I thought, maybe I should just kind of take it easy today. It's been a long, long week. I mean, what about for yourself? I mean, have you had a long week? Because I know I have. It's
Yeah,
like,
I actually have had a long week. Nothing bad, but
see,
yeah, it's been one of them weeks where it's just been a lot of stuff going on last
yeah.
minute. And my kids will be back to school next week, so you know how that goes when you got to get a lot of stuff going. Pretty much, I'm trying to balance a lot, but it's been a good week. I can't say it's been terrible. It's been good.
I
Yeah.
mean, and then plus the summertime is ending, which is also very sad as well. So I'm like not happy about that. But what I am excited to talk about, okay, let's go ahead and hit this up right quick. What I am excited to talk about, okay, is The Witcher, Nightmare of the Wolf. Okay, this was something that was put out on Netflix. All right. I mean, it was highly anticipated, right? Everybody was looking forward to this. It was a nice little prequel, so to speak, to the live action series that they had released last year. And I have to say, this movie, had a lot of things to live up to. If you look at the reviews, I mean, some people, it depends on who you talk to, right? A lot of people had some really great things to say about it. It was, they were excited about it. They loved the animation and stuff. And then others who are more what they call the purists aren't too happy about it. So I want to kind of talk about that, interject that a little bit. But, I do want to say that I think that this is something that I think everybody wants to talk about. It's popping off right now. So just want to go ahead and start off with what we always do, okay? Which is what is the good, the bad, and the ugly. So we're going to start off with Mr. Refine here, and I want you to tell me what was your good about this? What was your good?
Yo, I'll be honest with you. I feel like there wasn't much I can pick out on there. It was some things like if you really want to critique it and be an asshole, let's just call it what it is, then yeah, you can critique and say some stuff. But I didn't see too much of anything bad. Like it was just excellent animation. It was a dope storyline. It was great action. It was great character development. It was great history and growth. It was a lot going on in there, and I really, really enjoyed it. I don't care who else said what person critiqued and it said this or that. I enjoyed it all the way through. It was a thorough, very good movie, and I actually wished it was longer when it ended. I'm like, damn, that was it. That's all they got. So
Oh man.
I don't have, I don't really have nothing bad. It is what it is. It's all good for me. It's all love, and I'm waiting to see maybe they'll have a part two.
Ooh, nice. Very nice. Well, I'm going to say, my good for this really, I think the storyline was great. I do think like the animation was amazing. I mean, they had great pacing with it. I mean, just the idea of how they were trying to layer in pieces of what we've seen from the video game and what we've seen in the series, trying to add a little bit more color to some things that were kind of whispers throughout different media that they've had on The Witcher. So I really like that aspect of it. I mean, I got a few things that kind of fall into the bad category, which I'll I'll just slide my way right into it. But I think the thing for me, and it's a question that's coming up, is just how certain characters were portrayed. I think for me, there were a few plot holes, but I do think that overall, they kind of didn't give us enough background on certain characters. So like we think about Chetra, who, she came in, guns blazing on what her idea was of why this was bad or why this was good. But they really didn't give enough context for me as to why she was so gung-ho about it. Like a little bit, but not enough as far as I'm concerned, and just kind of building up her character. But I think overall, when you think about, some of the other aspects of it, I don't have too many things that I think were ugly. I just think that there was a few things that stuck out to me. But like you said, you don't have anything bad to say about it, right?
I do actually, but it's something like small. It's not really that big. It's just tiny, but I'm speaking. Well, I actually was looking at it and I'm like, yo, wait a minute. So Vesemir, he looked different. So when he was an adult, all of a sudden he has golden eyes. And I don't know if that was dealing with him going through the trial that they had to go through as kids. I don't know, but how did he go from having, I believe, black eyes or whatever color eyes he had to golden as an adult? It just didn't add up to me. But either way, it wasn't anything that was like too crazy for me to speak on. It was something small. So I'm gonna leave it at that. I didn't have nothing crazy to say on it. I'm gonna leave it at that.
You're gonna leave it at that. He said, okay, yeah. All right. We're gonna leave it at that. All right. Well, how about this? How about we go into that next question here, right? Let's get into it. Let's get into the next set of questions that we got here. So first off, and I'm starting off deep. Okay. What are your thoughts on the portrayal of minority characters in the show? Like, what did you think?
I actually thought it was the typical old school thing. If you're watching any movie, it could be a horror film or something. We always get wiped off like mad fast. They immediately took out, I believe the little boy's name was Sugo or Shugo, something like that. And it was
the noble kid, yeah.
Yeah, and this was literally right at the beginning of the movie where the boys, he's over there peeing on some sort of stone or something. The father's in the back. As a matter of fact, the boy was singing at the same time. And the father was, stopping dealing with the carriage. And then here comes some sort of demon or whatever to come down and kill him. And they wiped out his whole family just like that. Spoiler alert. Just like that. Like wiped them all out. He was the last one left. So I didn't really appreciate that much because that's what normally happens with us when you watch any sort of film. Most of the time, especially if you're talking like horror or something like that, or anything that has negative energy, I'll say, we get killed fast. There's no limitation or no time frame or how long we're going to get killed. And I'm expecting normally within the first 5 minutes. So I didn't like that. I do appreciate that they included something that I had never expected, which to me, I've seen it before, because when you're talking about like that old school movie and TV series, that old school vibe, like Roman and Greek and just medieval times in general, you'll normally have that where you'll have certain things happening sexually in there. And they actually had a man in there. His name was Luca. And he, from what I understand, he was bisexual. So that right there was actually, I respect that. To me, that was the first time that they kind of introduced it cartoon wise, in my opinion, or at least in my experience. So I respect that. I got to give him credit for that. So it was crazy, but the usual, they wipe us off fast and keep it moving. So,
yeah, I gotta say, I was a little taken aback by, like you said, how quickly they took out that first family. I was just like, okay, so we get a little bit of a story with, him singing, kind of giving a little bit of context to it. And then it was like straight off the riff. I mean, it was cool because it's like action right in the first part. You're like, ooh, we popping off like that. But then it's like, well, wait, did I see any other black characters throughout the entire rest of the film? No. So the whole fam gone, right?
None.
And the thing that gets me is that when the noble kid was saved, right? Witcher didn't really want anything else to do with him, right? He just dropped him off and said, hey, here you go. I don't care.
Yeah.
Right? Like there was no value to him. So the family gets killed immediately. He's ransacking the bodies while the kid is watching this. That's the other thing too, right? And you go, so you watch the family get ripped to shreds. You watch him take all the gold coin and everything else they have. And then he just drops you off to some random white person who's just like, hey, here you go. You get what I'm saying? So it's just like, what's up with that, man? So for me, and then the other thing too is like when they had Luca, who was in this, right? Who, he seemed to be a pretty proficient witcher, right? But at the same time, he didn't really have much. They didn't show him fighting. They never gave him any type of play to be able to show what type of abilities he had. And then they had him killed because, a mage wanted to use someone as a scapegoat. And it's like, I get that you had him in custody, but like, did you really need to kill off that one character? Like, there was tons of others, right? And I think they tried to put other types of characters in there. So they had, the black family in the beginning, a bisexual or a gay character in there, and they also had other witchers who were missing limbs to kind of identify, like maybe you would say that they were more of like a disability type of representative. But again, at the same time, they just felt like fixtures and not like adding to the story. Like, it was just like they're there, but not really pushing the story forward, right? So that was my take on it.
I agree with you on that. I think that was a pretty obvious thing. Again, I respected what they had going on with the minority cast that they had in there, even though it was very short-lived. But at the same time, there was a lot of negativity and negative connotations with it. Like, they wiped them off fast and they kind of just moved on. And again, they didn't give Luca much time at all, no play. He was on there. He wasn't able to. Nobody was able to catch up with Vesemir. Vesemir was getting paper. He was always having jobs. So to me, it was the typical. It is what it is.
And so I think the thing for me is, were there any predictable moments in the movie for you?
That's a good question.
Because
were there?
So I'll tell you what my thing is that when you think about predictable moments, you think about how, of course, they had the main character who's very aloof, right? He didn't care. He was just about coin. He didn't really care if anybody was, needed help or anything along those lines, right? Like, he was just like, nah, I'm over it, right? Like, I'm not, yo, D, what up? Oh, he just dropped off. But it was just the fact of like, oh, wait, there you go. What'd you say? He keeps getting removed.
Go ahead. He know how to do it. He'll be all right.
Okay. So I think the thing is, for me, it's just like, he played that character for quite some time. And of course, he has his aha moment towards the end. But it was just like, I was hoping it would do a little bit more, because when you think about his character in the game, right, he was very much of like a father figure. Now, of course, this is like maybe a few hundred, like maybe 100 years even past the story what we watched in the movie. But I still do think like it would have been nice to at least have him have a bit more to his character. He seemed a little bit too two-dimensional to me, but that's just me.
Yeah.
But I do think the other thing too is just the idea of how, again, they portrayed humans as just fearful. And I think Deglan had even said that fear is good for business. So it played into that, right? So humans were fearful, but then they were also just like, just going with whatever would seem to be the best, right? And we'll get into that a little bit later, but I just thought it was pretty interesting how they played the humans just to be so predictable. Like, they were just there. They were stupid. You were fearful. And that's, we're going to just use you as pawns, but that's just me.
Right. I actually thought, like, as far as predictability, I was more on, you can watch the trajectory of the movie and pretty much put two and two together to figure out what might possibly happen. And it surprised me a little bit at the end, because I didn't expect Tetra to do what she did. Just my opinion. I expected her to kind of be going against the grain the whole time, but not to that extent. So there wasn't too much predictability, but it was the typical cliche sort of moments, like Vesemir was able to pretty much overcome anything. He went to jail for a short period of time, and next thing you know, they got him out and he's in a room. What I did not expect was the woman to be Ileana, that old lady. I did not expect.
You didn't see that? Oh, nah, I knew it.
That blew my mind right there. I was like, what? And I knew that they didn't age, and that was kind of, that adds to their factor of, I can't remember the quote that I sent y'all, but the Witchers pretty much don't age. So when I seen her still around, I'm like, man, that's crazy. But as far as predictability overall, it wasn't anything that was crazy predictable, but it definitely threw me for a loop at the end when Tetra did what she did. So, like I said, I really liked it and I enjoyed it. And I think that there weren't many holes as far as, especially if you're talking about predictability, because normally you can watch every moment has like a twist and they have like climax moments in the movie. And I didn't get that where I felt like, you know, things were going to go left or whatever. I feel like they always kind of kept you on the edge of your seat. That's just my honest opinion.
Right. I mean, for me, I was just kind of like, I actually kind of figured it was her because she was going to bat with the court about witchers. I'm like, why would you be putting your neck out there for so much if you didn't have some type of history with them? So I wasn't too shocked by it, and I also knew, like you said, witchers don't age as like with humans. So it's kind of like if they're going that route, okay, I can see it. But I do think for most people, it kind of was a nice little twist for them. But for me, I was like, I knew it had to be her. I'm like, there's no way. You don't be sitting there telling the king, don't kill the witchers. The mages are just as bad. I'm like, yeah, you got to have some type of connections to somebody.
But see, the reason why I didn't expect it to be her, to kind of go back and forth, and we'll move on, would be the comment that she was saying to him at the beginning, because obviously she didn't want him to become a witcher, but she knew he was going to leave to kind of fulfill his path. And she said to him, so I'm going to leave the master that I'm indebted to be indebted to the master that I love.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? So if he became a witcher, that kind of goes against what she's speaking about, which is I'm supporting witches when the person that you loved or were in love with as kids has now become something that you told him you didn't really want him to be. So that's why I didn't expect it to be her, but we'll move on.
But you know what? Now that we finally got our third leg in this group.
What up with you, though?
Yo, what's going on? I call you the podcast king on here. So, like, you know, what you drinking, man? Because we missed your.
I'm super late. I'm 17 minutes in. My bad about that. So, you know, I had to. Let me go real quick. I'm not gonna waste too much time. I'm just finishing up what I got, man. Shout out to Hella Coastal Brewing Company with the Shock G, man. RIP Shock G. Shout out Federation Brewing Company. You know, and that's the collab right there. I'm also finishing up my last Hella Coastal Brewing Company Infinite Stout Season collaboration with Cellar Maker. So shout out to them. Love the can art, by the way. Damn, got a homeless man playing. Well, you can say he's homeless, but you don't know. He's just out there.
You're making assumptions, dude.
Yeah, you make assumptions, but really, what he's saying is it's stout season.
Wearing the Yeezy stuff.
Yeah, it's Infinite Stout Season. So he said it's always cold even when it's hot. That's what he's saying. So. Shout out to him and the multiple layers that he got. And last but not least, I didn't get a chance to open this, but I got it. Shout out to Brewing with Brothers out of East Palo Alto, California. EPA stand up, man, with they Saison, holding it down. And, you know, nothing but Bay love all day.
Homebrew, right?
Yeah, homebrew. So homebrew, man. They working on making it happen. So, you know what I mean? They make some fire stuff for they're about to be good old brick and mortar brewers, but they make some fire homebrew stuff. So I can't wait to pop that open. But of course, I'm gonna start off with the dark first. You know what I mean? The Infinite Stout Season. You gotta love it. But go ahead. Let me not ruin the moment.
Well, then I'm just gonna pop it off here. I want you to go first. All right. So you know, we know the Deglan. You know, he was a leader for the Witchers, and he was talking about, hey, you know, I gotta make sure that my Witchers eat. Right. And he came up with this fantastic plan, right, to kind of find a way to keep them in business. But when you stop and think about how everything went down in the film, how he was in the beginning, how he kind of pulled Vesemir in, what was happening during the middle of it, and then at the end, some of the things he was doing. I wanted to beg the question, do you think he really cared about his fellow Witchers, or was he really just focused all on the coin? So I'm going to start you off. Your talk now.
I'm gonna pour up though. Your host D Neal gotta pour it up though. No, Deglan definitely cared about the Witchers. He wasn't the thing I like about the Witcher universe, and I didn't read the book, so shout out to the person who created the books. There was a whole bunch of gray. There was no good guy, bad guy situation, and it wasn't really a matter of do I care about the Witchers or the coin. At the end of the day, all of these Witchers are these young boys. All boys, by the way, came into the situation where they were either given away by their parents because their parents couldn't afford it. And we'll talk more about the societal structure of the Witcher coming up. But at the end of the day, he cared about the Witchers. He understood what humanity was. Humanity was the greatest monster, the greatest threat, more so than any monster that the Witchers ever faced, because humanity could turn on you like that. I mean, literally, you could be their, you can be their hero, and then you could be their greatest hero, and then their greatest villain, all in one swoop. It doesn't even matter. So that's why when you had the toss the coin to me Witcher, it's like you're like heads and tails when it comes to humanity. Either you on their good side or their bad side. So I think he definitely cared about the Witchers and understood that he had to protect them because they were just the next on the fear of humanity. And when humanity fears something, they will do anything to destroy it, period. So he definitely cared about the Witchers, in my opinion.
Okay. All right. Mr. Refine.
Yo, he just dropped some jewels on there. So I gotta give him props on that. He definitely dropped some jewels. But I'm gonna say, my opinion, Deglan was a little bit balanced between both. He cared more about the Witchers, but also at the same time that coin, because if he didn't, why would he risk making or manipulating species to make something to where they always have a job to do? And that, to me, that's not really worrying about whether or not they are good or alive. That's more worrying about whether or not you can stuff your pockets. And he showed that behavior and characteristic through the whole thing, all the way into the end when they was kind of having a little feud at the end. And I don't want to give spoilers on that, but overall, I feel like he definitely had his hands in both sides. He had the humanity, whether it was good or bad, but he also was more about getting that coin. He was about getting his pockets fat, and he displayed it through the whole thing to me. That's just my personal opinion.
And you already did some spoilers. So spoiler, we doing spoilers out here.
We already did. We already dropped that earlier.
We dropped a couple already, but I don't want to say
that's what happens when you come in 15 minutes late. No, but I'm just no, but I mean, I think a part of me thinks that really, honestly, I don't think he really cared about him. He just had this view of like, I'm trying to make it in the world. You know, he said it's just the way that he would view things, right? Like he would always tell Vesemir, don't hesitate, right? Because to me, it was like he viewed hesitation as a weakness, which in some cases it is. If you hesitate too quick, if you hesitate too much, that can cause you to make some mistakes or miss out on an opportunity to save yourself or, just being able to move forward. But it didn't come off more of like a fatherly figure, towards Vesemir, like at all, or towards the other witches, right? It was more or less like, I'm treating this as a business, right? Yeah, the mages, it could be kind of a problem, which we'll go into a little bit later. But it was like, I'm using them just like they're using me. And the only reason why I'm using them is because they know the magic to get me the extra monsters that I need to keep me alive, to keep me fed. And so to me, it was like just his view that he had towards humans is seeing them as insignificant, saying fear, is good for business, or that humans die quickly, right? So they spend all their lives fearing and hating.
Yeah. Love that statement.
You get what I'm saying? So like he didn't come off to me in any type of way where he really showed any type of empathy towards anybody. Right? He was like, did I make coin? Great. If not, and he even said, hey, yeah, okay, so we're going to be a little low on coin and monster this year. He's like, hey, it is what it is. I mean, what else are we supposed to do? Or like, it was just like, that's how he came off to me. So a part of me wants to say maybe he did at some point in time, but I think he just became very cold towards it. Just like, I'm over it. That's what I got. That was just my take on it. I think, honestly, I wish maybe they would have given him a little bit more dimension, but it is what it is.
No, I actually agree with you on that, because when they was at the fire and him and Vesemir was sitting there, he kind of said, hey, we short all these witchers. You have to pick up the load pretty much. And kind of saying that, that's more money in your pocket. So
you know what I'm saying?
I love this character, man. Like, to be honest, and I mean, I didn't get to do a good, bad, and ugly, but character wise, like, he was straightforward. Like, it's not the Witcher world is not about love and father figure, none of that. Like, Vesemir, the reason why Vesemir wanted to become a Witcher is because I don't want to be a servant or a steward to a lord that could do whatever they wanted to do to me. And I mean, Deglan was just like, this is how you get coin. And any other way that they had, even I forgot her name already. I wrote it down too, but Ileana.
Ileana.
Yeah, well, Ileana, she was saying that. I mean, she was like, the world out there, like, you're even less than nobody. At least here you get your belly filled. And Deglan was like, you want. It was like when he saw the gold that he made and he just walked away. It was more so about just controlling your own destiny and not just becoming what your father was or what Ileana's mother was. And I just was like, Deglan, to me, hands down, yeah, he had his flaws, but at the end of the day, everything he said was 100% right. Like, I mean, just period. Like in that world, and I mean, playing the Witcher games and understanding Geralt's character and kind of getting that understanding of why his character has some of the empathy that you can have in the game versus what Vesemir went through. It makes sense and it's very clear as day because Geralt in the game says the same thing. Like humanity is just like humanity is the biggest monster, and I'm gonna shut up after that because we got a whole bunch of other to talk about. And I'm already
I like that. I like that. So, with that being said, I mean, when you look at the trial of the grasses, right? Like we've heard about this. If you played the games, right, or you watched the show, you know that this was like a turning moment for a lot of Witchers, right? Like this is where you either make it or break it at this point, right? Like you go through a tough time, it tests you, pushes you to your limits, and then you come out at the end of it as, this top tier Witcher, supposedly, if you survive. But in the movie, right? Like in the movie itself, I was kind of wondering, like for me, it kind of felt a little lackluster. And I'm curious if you guys felt the same way. I'm very curious about that. I'll start off with you. Yeah.
I'm getting all the rapid fire since I'm late.
All of that. I got to get you up to speed, man. Get your time.
I appreciate it. No, I didn't. It's exactly what I expected. Like it wasn't lackluster. Literally, they were filling them with venom poisons and a whole bunch of concoctions that these mages have created. I mean, they're literally taking monster genetics and pumping them full of it. So literally it's exactly what it was. When I thought of that and you playing the game is like, that's exactly what I thought it was. It was literally like either you live or you die, and we're going to keep pumping you full of this poison. And if you survive, then you become a Witcher. Like that was it. There's nothing. Yeah, it's nothing. Yeah, it's nothing other special that you're going to get from somebody injecting you with monster genetics and poison and just trying to get you to become this monster killer. Like, I mean, I loved how they showed it. It literally was just like somebody abusing the hell out of you by filling you with all this just horrible things in your body. Like,
all right.
And so many of them died too.
So you were okay with it. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I gotta agree with him on that. It was actually, it was actually like they got right to the point. But I'm gonna say, first off, when they kind of just dropped them off, they woke up and they in that swamp, and they was just getting wiped out. Like they woke up and like, yo, listen, if the necklace rings, then it means there's danger around. And that joint started ringing like 2 seconds later, and then I can't remember the name of the ghouls, whatever that came out.
The race came first.
Yeah.
Man, it came and just washed and just wiped them out completely. And it was on like 2 or 3 left, and then he ended up running and getting injured in the process. Then he wakes up in a hospital bed, and it's probably like 6 or 7 of them left in a room that went through the same trial, and they all had injuries, every last one of them. And then after that, they proceeded to saying, okay, well, here's the mental test where you get the drugs, you get the stuff that gives you hallucinations, you get all these things at the same time. So in my personal opinion, that's tough. Like you taking just orphans or unwanted or the undesirables of society, if you will, during that time. Here you go out on your own. You're fighting against the worst of the worst out in the world. Something that we don't even want to deal with as humans, as adults. We putting you out here and we taking you through the test to see if you can make it. So there was nothing lackluster about that to me. Again, my opinion.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm gonna give you what I thought about this. Okay. Here's my thing. I get that you're trying to kind of instill this idea of being ready at all times, right? I get it. So you drop them off out in the middle of the swamp, but you gave them no weapons.
Oh no.
right? It's almost like they set them up to fail, in my opinion. Like they were like, you know what? We don't have enough coin or enough rations to go around. So let's just drop these kids off. Nobody wants them anyway. We'll kill off a good number of them. And then the ones that are left, okay, then we'll kind of push them to become witchers. To me, it was like the whole point of being a witcher is that you're supposed to be, you know, kind of like fear doesn't really get into you because you've gone through the worst of it. But then you're also really good at being able to like fight. And we didn't see any of that. Like when Vesemir was sitting there talking to the kids, right? And they were talking about, you keep having us do all these foreplay and there's no food for us. There's nothing. And he came off like, I don't really care. I don't really want to teach you, right? Like it came off like, I don't care what happens to you. I went through it. I chose to do it. I don't care what happens to you. And it just came off to me like these kids are already considered, like you said, to be undesirable. You know, some people are giving up their kids because they can't afford them or they get the law of surprise.
Yep.
So the kids get taken by this. And then yet these kids are still getting set up to fail. You're still getting killed off and no one bats an eye at it. They're like, well, that's what happens. We'll hang your little necklace up on this tree and this thing is starting to fill up like it's a Christmas tree. But it's like, you know, with decorations. But I'm like, that's it? That's really what the trial of grasses is? Like, I don't see the mental piece to it. Like, it just felt like, we'll dump them in, kill them off. Okay, yay, you moved on to the next round. But that's that part as far, and I think that's the two separations. Like the trial of the grasses is not at least from my understanding and playing the game, at least in my opinion, the trial of the grasses is like, can you survive this poison and not die? and everything else is like just seeing, can you survive? And that made no sense because even when in The Witcher 3, when Geralt and his name starts with the other Witcher that starts with an L, I believe his name starts with an L.
Luca.
No, not Luca. That's the movie.
Oh, you talking about the last script, yeah.
Lambert in the game. And they talk about the ogre like Cyclops thing, where he was like, oh, it's a mission actually in the game where you have to go through that with Lambert. And actually Lambert talks about like they just like left us scared to like survive. And in that part of the game, they actually did have weapons, but that's before they went through the trial of the grasses to actually become a witcher. So that I actually agree with you. And I didn't understand that. That was one of the part of my uglies. And again, sorry for being late, but that was one of the part of my uglies was just that whole aspect of it was no knowledge. It was no teaching. Froze. Look at me.
Go ahead,
y'all hear me?
It's freezing up.
Oh, y'all can hear me?
We can hear you.
Yeah, I don't know why my camera froze. So yeah, my bad on that. It'll pop up. But anyway, just the aspect of that to me just made no sense. Literally, it made no sense whatsoever. Of like didn't train them or anything. Like a wraith. Like a wraith is a ghost. Like right. What do you like? I mean, like that just to me, I was like, what are they gonna do? Like they try to run and the wraith just teleported in and like grabbed them and just blasted them over. Like that just blew my mind. So I agree with you. Yeah, go ahead.
I'll give you an example. My bad to interject, but
no, go ahead.
This is not really an ugly, but it is an ugly at the same time. I was listening to an interview, an audiobook specifically. I don't do audiobooks. I normally like to read visually. So the audiobook is by Jay Prince. If you know who Jay Prince is, you already understand.
Yep.
Jay Prince was pretty much saying that for poor people, we are prepared early to deal with life, the worst of life.
Yes.
Whether it be you at home for a little while by yourself. I'm going to work right now. Don't answer the door for nobody. Or we poor, you got to make it, find something to eat until I get home from work, figure it out. And then you have the rich who are pretty much like the poor prepare you to be an adult young. Like you have no choice but to do that. But then you have the rich or the people who are well-to-do, which are boxing their kids in their shelter. They don't know how to deal with reality. And in this story, it relates to that where you have these rich kids. None of them are going off to be sold or become witches. They're dealing with their normal lives. And you have these poor kids who are trying to make money. So they do what's popular, which I will relate to the hood, would be sell drugs. But at that time, we're going to be witchers. We're going to make money somehow. So they're bringing them over here to become witchers, and they're preparing them for adulthood, the worst of adulthood, just like that. You're getting prepared like that. So that's how I kind of correlate that. And
I know.
it hit differently if you think about it like this. It's deep. It's real deep.
And that's what I was trying to get at. Like, it just seemed like the kids were just, no one cared about them. Like, no one cared about them. And that to me just was so sad, because these kids were, either it was their choice or not. A lot of them, I would say like 99% of them, it wasn't their choice. And you're just kind of getting thrown into these situations, right? So I felt really bad for them, and then knowing that their life wasn't even in their control. Like, their life was not in their control. It was in the hands of someone else who felt like, yeah, I can use you for a different for a different end to meet, a different means to meet my end. So it's just like, I just felt so bad for them. So
yeah,
I as much as I love the movie, I also just felt like, dang, this is deep. I feel bad for the kids. It's like, and everybody else is like, fuck them kids. But that's what it just felt like. It just really felt like that. So
I agree.
With that being said, and I think Dee's having some issues over here, but now here's the biggest one for me. Do you think it was the right choice to let the elf girl go? Like, do you think that, because I know there was a big discussion about it, right? Like, in the movie, they were like, we know that they're making these mutants, they're crossbreeding these creatures together. And again, it's out of their control. So one's going off Kitsu, going around, causing all kinds of havoc. And, you have these mages that are doing all these different types of experiments. I mean, they basically are the ones responsible for creating the Witchers, right?
Facts.
And then now you have this one of their creation gets loose because she, was able to kind of fake her own death. And now she's wreaking havoc. And because of all these different types of experiments that they were doing, they now have another one who's coming up, which, as you can see, she's still seen kind of not evil or turned at that point, right? So my question is, do you think they made the right decision in letting her go?
Me personally, I believe that they actually did. And the only reason why I'm saying that is because she was a part of their little program, their experiment. But at the same time, she didn't undergo any sort of training or anything. And for example, when who was it? Tetra, I believe, shot an arrow at the girl, and Phil, whatever his name, the elf, put his hand out. Phil Vrondro, he put his hand out to block it. He's like, she's just a child. So that in turn tells me she's still capable of being able to make her own decision at some point in time. She's not getting any sort of training to say, yo, you got to live this way and all humans are bad or kill witches or whatever. She was able to make her own decision. And that part I respected. So I think that they actually made a good decision, as opposed to Kitsu, who, from my understanding, went through all that. Like, they crossbreeded and did everything they did, but they also probably gave her, which was obviously she was used to be an elf, some sort of history or training on what's going on, because why else would she have the hatred for witchers and humans that she did? Excuse me. Unless she's getting some sort of either experience or training to be told what to do. And this girl didn't have that at all. Because when you looked at her eyes after they shot the arrow, she had a lot of innocence left in her eyes. So I think they made a good decision. I really do.
I like that.
Are you talking about Kitsu, or are you talking about Kitsu's daughter?
The daughter.
All right. Yeah, I'm asking Sudz, you talking about, is it a question about Kitsu or Kitsu's daughter?
Oh, no. I got her daughter, about her daughter.
Oh, her daughter? Yeah. I mean, at least, again, I'm coming from the school of Geralt, the Witchers, the White Wolf. So that's just hands down, like, easy. That's easy money. Like, no, she's a child. Like, she's a child, and she just wants to go home. She doesn't want to be there, like any of those things. Like, and even if she did have hatred, I mean, Geralt, at least for the playthrough that I do in the game, would have let him go. So yeah, I mean, hands down, that's just easy. That's an easy win for me. Like, yeah, let her go. Like, hell, I'm not afraid of what she'll do to humanity or the Witchers, because honestly, she was not at the level of Kitsu. Kitsu was a mage that got, again, spoiler alert, that got spliced with a Mar that can literally control your reality. We're not just talking about your memory or anything. It's like controlling your damn reality. That was crazy. Plus she was already a mage, so hands down, crazy. Yeah.
So I'll say this much.
I know my camera's still chirping, so it is what it is.
That's all right. That's all right. I'll say this much. We don't know what that elf girl was crossed with. We got no idea.
No.
And if she was KinkySudz daughter, as far as I'm concerned, the possibility of her being able to do some of those things is there. Right. And so for me, my thing is if you let her go and you look at what KinkySudz is doing, the question becomes, would she influence her in any type of way? Sure, she's going with the elf guy and he's going to try and mold her. But again, we don't know what traumas she has already experienced up to that point, right? Because she was an experiment. She was down in dungeon where there's tons of elf bodies that were laying up in a corner. So as far as I'm concerned, it's like, is she too far gone? Now, the thing is that up to that point, how they've treated kids, I was really shocked that they even let her go. I understood from the elf guy's perspective that he's like, she's a kid. She's one of my own. So for him, he was always about being empathetic towards other people. But everyone else that was in that room, from Tetra to Vizimir, didn't really care about kids, right? So as far as I'm concerned, I was shocked, to be completely honest with you. I was like, wow. Yeah. And I'm like, is it because the elf guy was there? And he felt like, okay, maybe I can't do this? Or like, was he having a true awakening moment at that point to be able to even make that decision of, okay, I'm going to let the girl go, right? So that to me was just like pretty interesting that, of course, I think it was a good decision to let her go. But I do often wonder, because sometimes they like to do this, it's like they like to set it up to say, oh, well, I actually came back and bit you in the ass. And she might actually come back and be like, nah, I tried to, go through the conversion of being, treated nicely and it just didn't work, right? Like it just didn't work. So for me, that's something I think is really interesting when you think about it in that regard. So there's that. He's back.
No, I got it. It was the camera just kept doing the camera app kept doing Wi-Fi instead of USB, even though I had the USB plugged in. So it started to piss me off. I was about to start throwing some stuff, but I was like, that's not a good idea.
Beat it down, D.
You can't beat down technology. Technology only does what it does.
You can pour water on it. You can pour water on it.
That's horrible. Go ahead.
So we talked a little bit about monsters, right? I mean, the biggest thing is that they're talking about, like, right? Like the biggest thing is like, and Deglan said it the most, right? He was like, there always has to be a scarier beast. There always has to be, right? So humans are always fearing, they're always looking for someone. They'll pay to have someone take out these issues, right? But then you think about it, you're like, well, why were these creatures even coming about? Sure, the creatures did exist, but there were newer ones that were coming out because of the mages, right? So, mages, I think, were held in a high regard within the society, and witches were kind of seen as these like terrible people, because anytime they came into town, people really didn't want to associate with them, but they called upon them when they needed them. So in the eyes of the movie and most of the humans in that movie, it came off like the witchers were really the monsters. But I start to think that maybe the mages might edge them out just a little bit. But wanted to at least get your guys' opinion on that and see what you guys think about that. So I'm going to start with Mr. Refine, because I saw him already with the lips about to form his first word.
Both of y'all be hitting me with this. Y'all watching my body language and stuff. I don't know what's going on here. That's a lot. So
what happens when you become family? You like,
exactly.
I respect that. I love it. I embrace it all. I'll say this: the mages, to me, were more monsters than anything, only because number one, actually two, but I'm gonna start at number one. They create witchers. Number two, they were creating cross breeds to keep the witchers in for a job. So they were the bigger monsters than the witcher. The witcher's just doing something to get coins and get money, and at the same time they're kind of keeping society safe, if you would, you know what I'm saying? But overall, mages were the bigger monster. They had a lot of bad stuff going on behind there, and an example would be Tetra. Tetra flipped completely. I did not expect her to do what she did, at least not to that extent. Considering, again, she understands what's going on behind the scenes. She knows what's really happening, who's making moves. And for them to act like, oh, well, we need to get rid of these people who are helping protect the citizens from these evil creatures and stuff was a little bit hypocritical, considering that your people are the ones who create them. So, yeah, mages for sure are the bigger monsters. Definitely.
Ooh, I like that.
Me?
I like that. Yeah, go ahead, D. I see. He's like, all right.
First off, shout out, Brick. What up? Would you hashtag high ABV life? We about it.
Ooh.
But I'm gonna say humanity. And mages are human. Witchers are human too. The mages. I mean, let's keep it 100. The mages are just like doctors and scientists, and a lot of people are gonna be like, what? And I'm gonna be like, because again, no matter what, you're experimenting, and that's a fact. That's a fact. No matter what breakthroughs, doctors, scientists, all that. At the end of the day, you're
hurricane. What are you doing right now?
Oh yeah, let's get it, because it's the truth. Like, no matter what, from whatever medicines that we have to anything like that, with the mages, all the medicines, the technology, all of that in the Witcher world was through experimentation of something, some shape, way, or form. So, I mean, humanity as a whole is going to be a monster, because let's keep it real. How many kings were like, go ahead and keep doing the experimentations? You know what I mean? Like how many kings allow mages to? They think that they can control them, because right now, at least in the movie Nightmare of the Wolf, and I'm gonna just stick to that because I don't want to keep jumping back and forth and getting people who watch this on the replay being like, "Hey man, stick to the movie." With the movie,
right?
With the movie, the king was allowing Tetra. First of all, which I thought was fire, was bloodline of the first mages. So the first humans that came over during the I forgot how they called it, the convergence, if I got that right. And they became the first group of humans to be able to use magic. So she was from the first bloodline of that. And like the king was allowing her to create a group of mages. For what reason? For military strength, for the magic, for the technology. So yeah, if we're talking between witchers and mages, I'm gonna say mages because the mages made the witchers, but humanity as a whole to me is the biggest monster, and they all fit in that category because they will push to the limits. And the mages, because they found magic, and also because that they could live for a very long time, like the mage who was name I wrote down, but I can't get to my notebook real quick. But the one that was in Kaer Morton that was doing all the experimentation, the main mage, and there were multiple, but the black one at that, and we're gonna get to that later too. He was like, yeah, this is. They were scientists. They were alchemy. All this stuff was about pushing humanity's evolution further, not just humanity, but being in control. And so, yes, in the context of the question, yes, the mages, but overall, it's humanity, by hands down.
Ooh.
Yo, he said something that I forgot about too. I forgot about there was a brother, the guy who was the other mage. I forgot about him.
With the dreads
on his name, and he had the locks. I gotta put some respect on his name. Yeah, he did his thing. He was doing his thing behind closed doors. So I forgot about him because we talked about the minorities in the movie. He was.
Oh yeah, we got to get on that. We got to get on that because I definitely want to say something.
I need to hear your opinion on that.
Man, I was hot, but go ahead, Seth.
Let me tell you something. When you said that the mages were like scientists and doctors, I'm gonna take a little offense to that. The reason why I say that is this, because when you think about a scientist or a doctor, sure, we have to, as you call it, experiment, but we have so many things in place to ensure that people don't suffer. You get what I'm saying? Like there are things that we put in place.
Suds, you're talking. Okay,
I'm gonna say the reason why I say this because that is something like, and this is the thing. I know a lot of people have their views on science, right?
Oh, this is about to get hot.
Right?
I like this.
We got this going, and I'm going with it. We got this going on right now when we talk about the vaccine itself, right? So for me, it's like I get the view on that, but in this case, the mages knew, and they did not care. Reason being is because they were viewed in such a high regard in society. They knew that they were untouchable, and they were being funded directly by the government themselves to do this type of stuff. Yes. So as far as I'm concerned, that is completely different. Sure, the act of creating, the act of experimenting may be similar, but you can't even put them in the same category because that in itself is like there's a difference.
We getting into it. We about to break this. This is about to get good.
But what I'm saying is this. Like the thing is that with the mages, I feel as though like you would call them out on it. They're like, yeah, okay, so
exactly.
Okay.
Because
to me, it's like but to me, it's like that just makes them probably the worst in my opinion, because it's just like the Witchers got brought into it. I think they got brought into it because again, you're getting made to fight something that you didn't even create, but you're sitting here struggling to make ends meet. And then you have the humans who started something, but then they really lost control as far as I'm concerned. You can say that they're the biggest ones that are responsible for it. They started, but they are not the ones continuing to perpetuate it. The mages are doing that as far as I'm concerned. It's like you created something, you lost control of it, and now you are sitting here bowing down to it. And that is why I think the mages are really the main threat with this, in my honest opinion. But because you got something to say,
you know, I got it.
Before
you know, I'm about to bring that.
Before you go, let me say this.
Go ahead.
Y'all watch? Yeah, have any of y'all ever watched She Hate Me?
She Hate Me. I feel like I have, but probably not.
Spike Lee movie. Tell him
Yeah. I have to think.
All right, so let's put that in context.
Oh, come on, man.
Yeah. All right, go ahead, D. Go ahead. Speak your speech, brother.
Man, I'm about to drop these bombs out here. I had to clap my hands.
Let's try it. Let's see.
Because the mages, okay, again, the first group of humans that were able to use magic, they call themselves mages. But even and I'm going to go in the context of the movie, and then I'm going to jump to humanity, because you said there are ethical, well, you didn't say ethics. You said there are things in place so that people don't go to that extent. But how did all that start? Because I'm gonna go first. I'm gonna go to the movie.
In the real world. I'm talking about.
I'm talking about the real world. So I'm gonna start. I'm gonna start with the movie. And then I'm gonna come to the real world. So with the movie, Nightmare of the Wolf, the reason why the mages made monsters is because of what? They wanted to colonize the elves and the dwarves. So when conversions happened, humanity came over to the elves and the dwarves, and they wanted to take over. They wanted land. They wanted all that, and they were not able to do that at first before magic. Once magic came, even though they had magic, elves had magic, and dwarves were resistant to a point. So what did they do? And it wasn't aristocracy. I'm gonna say it probably was aristocracy at the time, because all it was humanity coming over and converging to this world. And so they were like, we want to take over. We can't. What we have right now, yes, we're at a war with them and all that, but it's just like how when the United States dropped the nuclear bombs twice on Hiroshima. Okay. It was like, we have to stop it. We have to.
In regards to what though?
In regards to wanting to stop the war. So the mages were tasked to create monsters, and they made these monsters so that they could take over something. So that was sanctioned.
But did they have a choice though? Did they have to partner with someone knowing full well?
No, they did have a choice. What do you mean? They didn't have to make. They didn't have to make the No, I'm gonna answer these questions, and I'm gonna let everybody talk. They didn't have to make the monsters. They didn't have to. They didn't have to do any of the things they did, but they were doing it because they wanted to do experimentation. So the ones that wanted to do experimentations, and because they had magic, at the end of the day, no matter how many swords, and again, I'm talking in the context of the movie, not the game, because the game is different. In the context of the swords and shield at that time in the movie with Vesemir, mages were the top predator. They were apex predator, because Tetris showed just how powerful magic was. And so that was their decision to again, that put them at a higher echelon, back to elitism, put them at the top rim of like, now we're indebted to these aristocracy, kings and queens and all these people, commerce merchants and all that, because they want to expand. And we also want to do different type of experimentation, whether good or bad, if we want to put it in that context, but they wanted to push the boundaries to see what science they could do. So they did that. That was their decision, point blank, period. Now we're talking about today's time, and we're talking about, quote unquote, there are measures put in place. Yes, there are measures put in place, but the reason why those measures were put in place is because in the past, and we're talking about we're not talking about 100 years from now. We talking about just less than 100 years. In less than 100 years, or if we want to talk about enslavement for Black folks, we were the experimentation. Okay. And what I'm getting at is that I'm back to this point of there is no such thing as this good and evil aspect, because the only reason that women are having pap smears is because many Black enslaved women by the man who the pap smear was named after is the reason why you're able to have a pap smear. So it's like
time, because of what we've learned from these experiences.
I agree. So they're at the beginning experiment. But they're at that beginning stage though.
And experiments.
Yeah, but Suds, they're at the beginning stages, and we're talking about the Witcher movie, Nightmare of the Wolf context.
I think for me the biggest thing is like, So what that you joined up with the humans? Well, I mean, you didn't have to. Like you, of course, you're saying that they wanted to experiment on them, right? But you could have done that. You're magic. You were more powerful than anyone else in that realm. So again, for me, it was like, I get where you're saying like humans played a part in it because they were funding it. But at the same time, I'm like, the mages made the choice because, like you said, they wanted to experiment. They made the choice to continue to be partnering up with humans at this point. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm like, they're the worst of all, because it's like you guys put yourself in a position to be considered to be, like you said, the apex of this, and you continue to feed into this idea that we need to make more and more monsters. So we create witchers to make it look like, well, oh look, we're stopping the problem, when really you're continuing to feed into it. And it's like the humans, I don't think they really have any control in it, because at this point the mages really wanted to, and like you said, Tetra proved it. The mages could easily wipe out humans. And so the humans at this point have to bend their backs and bend their will to sit here and deal with what the monster that they initially had created.
But on top of that, Suds, the mages did not have the numbers in the movie as of right now. They didn't have the numbers. So no matter how powerful they were, we're talking about swarms of humans.
They made swarms at the end of the movie.
Yeah, but the swarms at the end of the movie was a partnership to take down one small group of witchers. And we're talking about an entire, and that's only because Kitsu agreed to do that, because she had revenge aspects that she wanted to take down the witchers. If the mages alone wanted to stand alone and say, we're going to be apex predator and you're going to do what we say, you're going to have all the kingdoms, all the people fighting to take you down. And not all the mages agreed. And that's another point I wanted to touch on too as well. I'm not saying every mage was in that aspect of wanting to experiment on people and just for science and have no emotion as they were showed in the show. But the reality is that the ones that did, the people who wanted to be, again, in control of the elves, of the dwarves, of other people, they allowed it to happen. So they are the monsters. You can't just say, oh, I didn't know what was going on. Yes, the people as a whole may have not understood what was going on, but the aristocracy, or the ones in power, quote unquote, the ones who were given power are people said, yes, we're going to believe you're a king and you have all these rights because you have an army, because that's really what it ties down to. You have other people that will kill for you so that you can have this power. Those are the ones that I'm talking about. But even the ones who were impoverished and all that, what were they doing? They were so poor, or because the mouth was too much to feed, they were giving their kids away. So it's like it's multiple levels, and I'm not disagreeing with you at all. I'm just saying the fact is that humanity as a whole, there's always a choice. And they chose, and when I say they, as whether knowingly or unknowingly, they chose to continue the system. And so therefore, to me, like I said, the mages, yes, in the context of the question, the mages are horrible, but humanity as a whole, they are the true monsters.
So I'm gonna throw something in there then. When you say that the, as a whole, humanity, they had a choice and they're continuing to feed into the system. Would people say the same thing about minorities?
Yeah.
Right.
What actually are you talking about? Yeah.
In the sense that they continue to feed into the system and saying that, well, you guys aren't really trying to elevate yourselves, or, like you hear this type of rhetoric, right? Like this being used when they talk about minorities, right?
Oh yeah. But this is
that, you get what I'm saying? So like,
but that context.
That's a different level. You got to understand the background or the context of it. It's not the same as. It's similar to back then in regards to The Witcher, but it's also different. And this is a rabbit hole that we'll go down and we'll be talking for an hour.
We'll talk a whole nother hour.
And I'm right.
But what I want to say,
that's a deep conversation. Yes, we are pretty much designed or set up to go through the system, and we have a choice to not do it. But at the same time, again, I'm going to reference Jay Prince. We go based upon what we see. Our point of reference.
Yes.
We go based upon what we see. That goes to craft beer. That goes to music. That goes to the movies we watch. It is our point of reference. So if we grow up in the hood and everybody else around us is doing X, Y, and Z, guess what we're going to do? X, Y, and Z.
And not everybody.
Suburbs, huh?
I said not everybody.
But
not everybody. But I got you.
The majority. That's why we stand apart. When us three have this conversation, we are setting apart what we do. But the people that live next door to us are some of our friends. They might not have thought the same thing. They might have told you the same stuff we talk about behind closed doors.
Mhm.
Nah, what the fuck is you watching? That shit crazy. We don't do that. You nerdy. Come on, man. That's a deep conversation, and you can go on and on and on for hours about it.
Yeah.
But the reality is this: your point of reference will give you what you think you should be doing. The only reason why I know about craft beer is because my point of reference got changed. If I didn't get that changed, I would have been drinking OE, Coke 45, whatever was cheap.
St. Ives, Mickey.
St. Ives, all that stuff. But my point of reference got changed once I got older. So our point of reference in this case with The Witcher is you are a mage, you're doing X, Y, and Z, and you have somebody behind you funding you or telling you to do X, Y, and
giving
Z.
you the
So
green
guess
light.
what they're going to do? They're going to do X, Y, and Z.
That's a
so
fact.
You know what I mean? This is a deep layered conversation.
And throwing that in again with when people say, well, you're not pulling yourself up by your bootstraps, that we know that's false. We know that's false narrative because there's mechanisms in place for when you go get a loan. When you move into a neighborhood, going to go
get medical help. Exactly.
And then we can move on because I want to make sure we get all your questions, and we're already in the hour. So again, I apologize for being late. But what I want to, because I want the audience to actually, I want the audience to actually watch it, but watch the whole thing because I want them to catch this. But when it comes to, I've gotten that question. I've gotten the comment. One of the comments I got, and then we can move on. Is I got well, you know what? Yeah, man. The first thing y'all got to do is stop killing each other. And I'm just like,
I've heard that.
Stop.
And once I heard that, I was like, again, I know where this conversation is going. You're not hearing anything that I said about how when it came to being on welfare, that the men and the men couldn't be in the house, otherwise the welfare wasn't given. But again, and I know personally by experience the amount of Russian people in Sacramento, California that came here when everybody was like, don't let the Mexicans in. And a young man when I was at ARC college said, everybody talking about Mexicans, but Russians is coming over here by the boatloads. Now, before COVID, the people who were running a lot of the nightclubs and things like that were Russian. And it was like, again, it's back to this. The white ice is colder. If you white, you right. Because whiteness is a construct. Just like how, if we're talking about in the context of The Witcher, that whole construct of elitism, that whole construct of aristocracy is a construct. Like, yes, someone has to take the lead because not a lot of people, society, I mean, people in general, not everyone wants to go take the lead and do something. Like being a leader is not necessarily we're going to go this way. It's like, what does everybody want? Okay, everybody wants this. Some people are timid. Some people are raring to go. Other people are just indifferent. Me as a leader, I have to make it to where I can get this group of people to go this way. And they're going to entrust in me because they don't have to take the fall. If I fail, quote unquote, then it's my fault. And that comes into that context of that conversation because I hear it all the time. And even this happening now where it's like, well, if you do this and if you do that, and if it was you, and I'm like, yes, there are still decisions that you have to make for yourself to where you can't go down that rabbit hole of negativity or in that stereotypical viewpoint. At the same time, don't play me again, coming from where I come from, the experiences that I had to where you and as an adult, I can look at how comments were said and I'm like, damn, like you're not really my friend. You're not really a person. You're not really an ally, quote unquote. You're none of this stuff. You're just a person that wants to. You're okay, Daryl, because you're not like them. You just don't say it. Ooh, yeah, and so that's just
that all the time.
And that's just the reality. And that can go, like I said, we can speak for another 5, 6, 7, 8, 10. We can be all night,
24 hours.
With that type of conversation. But I understand where you're coming from because we still do have to take personal responsibility for our own actions and how that ties into this whole good, healthy debate as far as like why humanity as a whole for me are monsters is because, again, yes, even though the mages became apex in the sense because they could use magic and very few in the movie can use magic, it still was the choice of humanity, and humanity was already going through that. Again, it's back to you don't have an army. you don't have people behind you that will risk their lives to become something better or to get out of the situation. And and honestly, everybody who's being taught in this system still wants to get what? They want to get money. They want to get elite. And it's not even about the money. They want to be accepted in a place so that they themselves don't have to be in the gutter. And like, no matter what, at the end of the day, for society, that's how it's separated. You keep doing this because if you get here, then you don't have to ever worry about being down there. But down there is where majority of the people are, and the change could happen down there, but we all have to be willing to put that sacrifice in. And that's why I say humanity as a whole, everybody had their own agenda. And no knock to them, because again, even here, even in real life, our society is separated like that. You have right now, the way that the world is going with COVID, it's the haves and the have-nots. And we're just talking about the states.
We're fragmented severely.
Yeah, very skewed. I mean, if you go around the world, it's even more so, and it's still tied down to colonialism. But again, that's a whole nother conversation. Let's get to the next question, because we will sit here for another hour, and I want to make sure that Sudz gets all the questions answered.
So, since we're talking about this, right? I mean, this here's had probably one of the biggest points, right? Like, this was the biggest point when it came to just getting any type of background story about what happened, because this was talked about a lot in the series a little bit. This was talked about a lot in the game. And so when we finally get the chance to see how this actually went down, right? Like, it was interesting to see that humans, of course, because we always hear the humans came and led to the fall of Kaer Mohen, right? And I'm like, okay, but how is that? Because humans, I mean, when you think about it, going up against the Witcher, I mean, that just seems like it would kind of be a kind of an uneven battle. But now seeing how that went down, I mean, what are your guys' feelings on that? I mean, like, what did you guys take from that? How did you feel about that?
I loved it, and that may not how it happened in the book, or if they ever do it in the games for The Witcher 4, whenever that comes out, because CD Projekt Red dropped the ball, and they became a bunch of money only, customers last.
No.
Oh no, that's a fact. I mean. Cyberpunk 2077 was a shit show, and I don't care.
You don't like all the customizations all the way down to.
I didn't even play it because I don't have the new Xbox. I'm not buying all these systems.
PC.
And I'm not doing none of that. I'm not putting on the Xbox One because I'm not about to have a glitch, because I will go crazy. But anyway,
PS5, baby, I done went through 8 of them.
Oh man, you wild. You're a wild man. But
I'm about to mute him for talking about he went through 8 of them.
Yeah, I'm not playing off that. Not $500, not $500 a pop. I ain't. But no, I think the Fall of Kaer Morhen, it doesn't have to. That's the thing I love about The Witcher. Like The Witcher, when I watched the Witcher Nightmare of the Wolf, it literally was a mission in The Witcher 3. Like, that's how I took it, and I loved it, because I was like, this is just like the game. So if you haven't played the game, you got to go play the game. You can even go back and play number 1, because I want to go play Witcher 1 and 2 first. But I just started at 3 because I was like, what is The Witcher? But literally the fall of that, it doesn't have to be like, I think a lot of times we want this over dramatic aspect of like how Kaer Morhen fall, but like the Witcher universe is not over dramatic. It's very simple. I'm a Witcher. I got brought here as a child, either by the law of surprise or because my parents dumped me off, or because I made a decision because I didn't want to be raped, pillaged, or just be an indentured servant, or AKA a slave. To this whatever person. I did that. I'm fighting monsters. Before I'm fighting monsters, I'm trying to survive this. Hopefully I survive and don't die. Now I survive. Now I got to eat, because Kaer Morhen, no matter how not updated, but how it wasn't torn down. But at the end of the day, that was isolation, because the rest of humanity didn't really care for the Witchers. The Witchers were monsters and monstrosities. They really wanted them dead, but none of them really wanted to study to how to take care of the monsters. So they allowed somebody else to do it, just like how aristocracy, elitist people do. And it's like, it's just very plain and simple. Like, it's step by step. And that's what I loved about it. Kaer Morhen fell because, at least in the movie, spoiler alert, as always, is that Tetra, who was a mage, no matter how strong she was, she couldn't kill all the Witchers. and her group who were just learning magic, they couldn't kill all the witchers. Matter of fact, the humans that came to fight with her with that pitchforks and goddamn scythes, they was gonna get their ass washed, and they was gonna get washed. So she had to align with someone that could bring monsters. And because Kitsu was already a mage, and then she got the Mar genes in her, she was able to manipulate the reality of all the monsters. And I'm not talking about just brainwash them. She literally made their reality whatever she wanted. And like that was fire. And to me, it was like, it was great. It was like, it literally was a mage who wanted revenge, and a elf that they took and they experimented on. And literally that's what it was. And I loved it every second of it because it was very fast too. And that's another thing that I love about this movie. It was not long drawn out speeches and things like that. This was straight up like, no, this is about to happen. It's action time. It's going down. You die, you survive, you die, you survive, you die. You barely survive. You thought you lived, but you died too. And now it's only you left. Perfect.
Man.
Yo,
right.
Listen. D is going on a rant because he didn't miss 17 minutes.
Thank you.
I get it. My brother going on a rant right now. He dropping gems. I'm gonna try to keep it short and simple. My brother over here.
My bad.
No, you good. Listen, we've been going on a talk that needed to be had, and this is a deep conversation that a lot of us in our community need to have amongst each other. But not in front of everybody.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Conversations we had behind closed doors. But anyway, as far as the fall of Kaer Mohen, it was going to happen. Tetra was manipulating. She had Kitsu once she got her stuff together. It was going to happen. I didn't feel no sort of way. Nope. It is what it is. And the next generation of Witchers, if they become that, and that's a question I believe you might have later, they might decide to do something different. It didn't affect me anyway at all, because the same thing that you created as a mage, a witcher, now you are now destroying. Because again, this is Tetra. Somebody before her, the first people who came over here, she's their first bloodline that she came from. They created witchers. So now you're destroying the same thing that you created. Doesn't make sense to me. I didn't feel no sort of weight. Again, that's my opinion.
So I'll say this much. I agree with you. I think they were getting to a point where they were heavily inflated and the curtain was going to fall on what they were doing. So again, the fall doesn't really surprise me. I think the biggest thing for me was that during the fall, the entire movie Tetra kept talking about how wrong it was that they created monsters, how wrong it was that the witches did this and that. And then you go and use the same damn, experiment creation to help bring them down. Like, you went on this whole rant trying to make yourself sound so self-righteous, and that you still found that you had your limitations to a certain extent and utilized someone else or another creature to help execute your plan. And then on top of that, during the whole scene, they played on this a little bit earlier, and I had another question here, but for the sake of time, I'm just going to bring it into this. This whole idea about Vesemir hesitating. Throughout the movie, he kept hesitating. And in this one instant when he doesn't hesitate, he goes on a killing rampage, and what happens? He fell for the very thing that both him and Tetra had experienced earlier. We're going to make you think this illusion is real.
Yes.
They played on it. And I said, watch they end up doing it, because he's going to end up killing the same woman that he cared so much about. And I knew they were going to do it. It was just set up too nicely for it. I'm like, how the hell else is he able to do? You're like, how is he able to kill him so quick? I'm like, they're setting it up. They set it up.
That was part of my ugly.
Yeah. And so that there's a bit of predictability with it, I feel. But I also
which the Witcher is.
Which I get it. But I also think like that the thing that got me was like, here you have Tetra who sat here, made this whole movie about why this was wrong, utilized it, and then you trick Vesemir into this falling for an illusion. And I was just like, come on, man, like think. The one time you take Deglan's advice of not to hesitate, you finally do it, and look what happened. Like, look what happened.
But I like, but I like that because I wasn't with Tetra's magic, her using using the bow and arrows. I was like, come on, like the magic you got. But then also she was in an enclosed surface, so it made sense. Like you start using flames or you start using force fields, and Kaer Morton, no matter how nice it quote unquote looked, it was just a bunch of bricks that was just barely standing. Like nobody was doing. Yeah, nobody was doing. Yeah, exactly. Nobody was doing no maintenance on no Kaer Morton. Like, get out of here. That thing was just standing. So I understood that if you think about it in a more broader context. Grander scheme. But I just like the fact how, because he was so focused on one thing, he wasn't looking around. He wasn't thinking. Like the no hesitation that he should have done was that he should have killed Kitsu as soon as he broke out of the first manipulation, the first false reality. But he didn't do that. He didn't do that. What did he do? He just hit her out the way. He didn't even cut her. He like punched her and pushed her out the way. Like, come on.
He felt like maybe he she's an experiment, and it wasn't her fault. So let me just.
And that's where that emotion. Yeah, and that's why I said Deglan for me is like, that's why I liked him as a character, because he has experience about what emotion will do to you. Emotion will dull the senses, and not only that, he had taken the toxin concoction, so he already knew that his main focus was to kill Tetra, but he was so focused on killing Tetra that he literally thought Kitsu was what. Just like this, he already knew she was a mage and she had the Mar DNA. That is like probably the most dangerous mixture that he could have. He could have faced. And because he was so focused on it, and then Ileana was in the mix, and he saw Deglan get murked. He was just on a war path. But reality is that you just played yourself. Like, that's one thing that Deglan was trying to say is like, don't hesitate, but you don't hesitate because you don't let your emotion get the best of you. You got a mission, you go attack it, but you got to always watch your surroundings. And it's just a weird way how they did that. But go ahead.
I agree with you. I think that was like, I think for me that whole scene was like, I get where you guys are going with it to kind of tie off the ends of this, but at the same time, I had some flaws. Like I saw some flaws with it. But,
definitely.
But now we're going into this part where, again, we've been saying spoiler alerts all this whole episode, and I just want to say, do we think the last batch of Witchers are less qualified? And the reason why I say that, the reason why I bring this up, is because Vesemir, he really didn't care too much about participating in training of the next batch of Witchers, right? He just didn't care. And, when they showed a little bit of that when they were when they were showing him fighting and having this long, kind of a short speech with the kids. And he really didn't care. So now you're left with the last batch of potential Witchers who've already, it seems to appear to have taken the poisons. And you're left with a guy who, for the whole movie, has come off as a guy who only cared about himself and was more of a, kind of the drunk uncle rather than a fatherly figure that we've seen him in the video games. So my question to you guys is, do you guys think, and we know a little bit if you played the game, but do you think that they may not have been as qualified? And I'm going to start with Mr. Refine on that one.
Yeah. They dropped the ball. It was a lot going on, and I personally feel like there wasn't enough attention or time given into these Witchers. And should be honest with you, I don't know what class, if you want to say that, Luca graduated from. How the fuck Luca allow himself to get captured and get beheaded? Yeah, let's go with that. Let's start with that. Now you can fast forward to these next set of people who are going to be Witchers. There was no time put in. They're getting rushed through. Vesemir is over here just going after the bank. He's getting that paper over and over and over. They showed a joint of him. He's like pretty much raining in money. Just
it's just coins everywhere.
Yeah, just money everywhere. He's just happy as hell.
Valley of Plenty.
They didn't put no time into these next Witchers. And again, I'm going to leave it at that.
Nice. All right, D, what you got?
Yeah, I'm looking at time. We almost at an hour and a half, so I'm gonna keep it short. Yep. No, I mean these kids went through the same damn thing that all of them went through. So they were all unprepared. I mean, at the end of the day, they survived the trial of the grasses. So yeah, now they got to get trained with swords, and when they get trained with swords, the first thing they gonna get is they got to go kill a monster as kids, as witchers now, and like they just like the other batch. So it's like there is no difference because the training that they get is sword play. But outside of that, once the sword play, you got to still go out there and go fight a monster. Period. Experience is the best teacher. I can teach you everything, but even Vesemir, same thing. Even though they didn't show it, Vesemir got trained with the sword and learning, reading the books and all that. But when it came to fighting a monster, you on your own. You got to survive. Period.
Damn. So we already know how he feel. Like the kids, you got to figure it out on your own. I think
they witchers now. They got super strength out here. They stronger than us. I think
the biggest thing for me is just like the idea, like I said, is that when you think about it, you now understand why you came about. You understand why there are monsters in the world, and maybe because of the change that he's gone through and the story that we learned, that maybe he might be a better teacher to them. I don't know. But I was just thinking that seeing how he was throughout the movie, I think that was probably the worst person you could probably have. Like, sure, he can fight, but he wasn't about to sit there and be, I'm not saying you need to hold their hand because that's not going to help. But I also do think that there are things that he probably should be able to tell them like, hey, be mindful of this or be wary of this. And I don't know. I don't know if he's really going to do that with them. Right. So a part of me is like, yeah, sure, you got to learn some of this on your own. But there's also, when you think about like the type of advice you get from your parents, sure, they've been through some stuff and they can tell you right off the rip, like, no, I don't think you should trust that person. That's because of their experience. Yep. And I don't know if you'd be willing to share that with them. That's the one thing that I was like, I don't know.
Facts.
I don't know. But
you like played the video game, Don't try to
sit here set up in the movie, but the way
we didn't already did spoiler alerts. Vesemir is that dude. Point blank, period.
But stick to the movie. And the way they had him in the movie, I don't know. It wasn't the same Vesemir, in my opinion. Who knows? Maybe
he didn't lost his loved one. He didn't lost the woman he loved, and he like, know what? It's more than just this coin out here. Now I'm about to teach.
Not from what they showed him doing this and coins raining on him.
I'm about to teach Geralt how to get down. That's what he's about to do. Because Geralt was the only one that almost escaped, and they had to bring his ass back. Geralt's the G. Let's go.
So let's say this. So with that being said, are you excited for the upcoming series? If they come out with another movie, are you going to be excited about it? Did this make you want to be like, yeah, when it drops, I'm watching it? Or
hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Definitely. They ended on a bang. I'm going to start with this. Remember you asked us which abilities or powers we like the most?
Yes.
That Igni was fire. And pun intended, right? I need to see more of that going on. I need to see more Last Airbender Avatar sort of shit going on where he blasts people with fire, flying all over the place, burning people up. Listen, melting ice lakes for the love of his life.
That's a fact.
I need to see more of that going on. That means the dude had unlocked potential. Yes, I'm ready for another season. Let's get it.
All right.
I mean, I'm ready for another movie. Excuse me. I'm ready for another movie. I'm not season 2. I'm gonna keep it 100. Like season 2 of The Witcher is like, yeah, it'll be good, but they don't have a budget. That anime can do what movies can't. Period. Right. And like the movie 2 needs to show Geralt getting busy and learning from Vesemir and getting his ass whooped by Vesemir, and then Vesemir saying, now this is how you hunt a monster, go hunt it, and like not coming to save him, just watching him. I mean, that's how I gotta go down. Like that's how I gotta go down. And I want them, and I want them to do movie number 2. I think that the woman who is the lead director, I already think number 2 is coming. Like Netflix, The Witcher, CD Projekt Red did a great job making the Witcher game, and I think that Netflix has hit a gold mine. And people who have not played The Witcher, the ones who are interested are going to play it. But hands down, anime is like hot fire right now. Everybody's talking about anime. And Netflix knows it. Crunchyroll got bought from AT&T. Yeah, Crunchyroll got bought from AT&T for $2.5 billion. Now Crunchyroll and Funimation are combining together to become under one umbrella. Like, anime has always been here to stay, and you got to do The Witcher 2 because people who are fans, I mean, The Witcher, excuse me, you got to do you can't call it the Nightmare of the Wolf, whatever you're going to call it. It's got to be a second movie, anime movie, and not animated, anime movie. And it's got to be fire, which it will. And you got to, like what Mr. Refine said, you got to throw in more of that Igni, that Arid, that Axie, that Urine, Yarden, and then I forgot what the last one was. But you got to put that in there. You got to get some ghouls. You got to get some race. You got to get you got to get everything. You got to hit hot fire out here. You got to get some griffins in there because they didn't even show the damn griffin until the end. They need more of them joints. Because them things are crazy.
So I will say I'm excited for it, regardless of what format it comes in. I mean, whether it's a series or a movie, I think they've done a great job with kind of putting it into a live action or animated film or format. So regardless, I will always watch it. I love if the new game comes out, I'll be playing it. I think this whole world in itself is just a good one to follow. So regardless of the fact, I'm excited for it. I can't wait to the next one. But we went a little long-winded today. But I appreciate everyone who stayed on with us. And for anyone who's going to watch this whole thing later, make sure you have a good beer or a good drink while you're watching this. I think, honestly, this was a good discussion. I see, D, you had something to say. Go ahead and say what you got to say. You
got to hit that like button. You got to subscribe. You got to follow us on all social media.
Hit the notification bell.
Notification bell. Always hit the bell. But definitely got to hit that like button and subscribe. And really, again, algorithm be damn. I want to make sure that y'all understand that Black Nerd Fridays, we get deep. And yes, we went a little long on this one because I was late and I was running my mouth because I love The Witcher. Like, straight up.
Make up for that 17 minutes he missed, but he was
I had to throw that fire in there because I had a lot to say. And I didn't even get to talk about how they was treating the black people, and they had no black Witchers in there.
Well, we did
stop right here.
We talked about it, but listen. You was dropping gems, so I'm gonna give you all the respect in the world.
Man, thank you, man. I was like, brother. Don't play me. Don't start the show. Don't start the movie where all the black people die, kids in general. Okay, and then you ain't got no black Witchers, but you got black merchants and stuff. Don't play me. Listen. We talked about that. No, honestly, listen, we talked about that, and I said that right off the rip. I'm like, oh, it's great. They started with action. Oh hell no, it ain't great. Screw that shit. Don't be using black bodies.
No. What I'm saying, let me finish. It was great to see the action pop off like that. But then at the same time, I'm like, well, damn, the whole family. And I even brought up, and you haven't said it yet, which I'm shocked, D, is the fact that they just dropped this black kid off to a bunch of white people to say, oh, I don't care what happens to you. I don't care. So
Witcher. I already knew that was going to happen. He ain't no babysitter.
No, he wasn't. Oh, you talking about Vesemir's a Witcher.
Yeah, Vesemir ain't about to take that kid with him.
But if you're going to talk about the fact of black bodies, and how they're being treated, that it was a continuation of it. Like, it was more like he had no value. And that's what I wanted to get at. That was
if you paid attention to this movie, if you paid attention to anything, they were on point with a lot of shit.
Hell yeah.
There was nothing subliminal. Everything was right in front of your face.
Smacking your motherfucking face.
Yeah.
Yes.
If you didn't see it, then you lost. Your pineal gland is calcified still.
Man, I'm trying to tell you. Go ahead, Suds. Drop that bomb.
I was just saying that's just basically like I think there was a lot of things, a lot of themes that were in here that if you really stop and look at it, besides just being ooh and ah by it, that there's a lot of things you can actually look at to say, there's a lot of things they were kind of touching on that I think were sore spots and also just things that we see in our own society. So I'm excited that we talked about it. Just the fact that the whole theme of this month is about transhumanism and how you can enhance yourself, and that these individuals are being enhanced not in their by their own volition, right? Like, this was, you were getting forced to take a poison, and because of that, now you've become this superhuman, unstoppable monster killing machine. So for me, it's like getting back to that whole theme. I just thought that was pretty cool. But I mean, are you guys excited for the next topic that we're going to be talking about? The next show? Or I shouldn't say show, the graphic novel, Tokyo Ghost. So I put it out ahead of time what we're going to be talking about for the whole month. Next week, it's going to be a graphic novel. I really like this one. I hope that you guys get a chance to read it beforehand. And it's also going to be a big day because it's my birthday next Friday. So
Virgo season.
More
Virgo
fire.
season, which is better than Leo. Just saying.
Hell
but
no.
just saying.
Don't play yourself. Don't play yourself out here, okay? Because Leo's is the shit. All right. You can't don't. Yeah, I ain't respect to all everybody else.
Gemini, y'all got some. I love how the three of them.
All I gotta say is that all the people who like Obama, Leo, stop playing.
We
I'm sorry, Beyonce,
we talking about
Michael
these
Jackson.
Black Geminis.
Come on now.
We talking about Geminis out here. You heard?
I
Gemini. I'm Mr. Fine, and I got another side. So
but you know what? I tell you this much. I will say,
I
love that we have three.
Anyway, hey, y'all want this merch? Y'all gotta hit us up because we definitely gonna make this happen with the merch. And I know we only got like a couple seconds for it to hit 1 hour and 30 minutes. So thank everybody for joining. Make sure you hit the like button on the replay. Yes, we ran our mouths, but we talked about some great stuff. Don't play yourself and only go into that. You can listen. The thing about us, and then we can end it on this, Sudz, and I apologize because it's your month.
Really?
It's your month, and I apologize. But the thing about Black Nerd Fridays, and then I'm done, is that you don't have to look at us while we're talking. You listen to us, and you're gonna be like, "Wait a minute, what did they say? What are they talking about?" We are focused on Black people first, but we love anime, we love all this, and all the things that we enjoy. Society has to deal with that and look in the mirror, and I think this is great. So shout out to all the brewers who provided us this beer. Hella Coastal Brewing Company, what up with you? Shock G, RIP, man. Y'all gotta hit up. Y'all gotta come to the town for that. Y'all gotta come get this cellar maker, this infinite stout season. I mean, come on, man. And shout out. I mean, it's Yay area out here, man. Yay area. And then you got the Brewing with Brothers out here, man. They say Zon is fire out here, man. Let's go.
So
Black Nerd Fridays every Friday. Yee!
Every Friday. So thank you all. We'll see you next week. Peace.
Let's get it.